Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring gas. Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
Okay, so the Timberwolves played a basketball game in Los Angeles last night, and a lot of things to talk about off that one. We'll mix in some feedback here on this Feedback Friday edition of Flagrant Howls after we take you guys to Kieran's here. Take your imagination across the street from Target Center, if you will.
Yeah, take your 16 technical fouls and take 16 steps over to Kieran's from the Target Center. You can just enjoy a nice little bar stool there as you're maybe suspended for a game because you keep taking dumb fouls. Go to Kieran's, great game day specials, great spot for pregame, for postgame. It just steps away. If you're looking for a watering hole before or after any Timberwolves game at the Target Center, go check out Kieran's, just steps away from the Timberwolves home arena.
So let's start with this one from Michael Becker here. And you can always hit us up, the feedback tab in the Score North app if you want to send in for Feedback Friday. We always scour the YouTube comment section on these Flagrant Howls episodes. Michael Becker says, Ant, all caps. Unless he changes it soon, Anthony Edwards will be another talented player in the NBA that fell way short of his overall potential. He has now received more technicals before March than anyone other than DeMarcus Cousins. It's great research. I was trying to research that, and I'm glad Michael did the work on. Because is this the quickest anyone has ever gotten to the suspension?
Yeah, I don't know if Boogie got there that quick.
20 plus.
I have no idea, but that's great.
I think Draymond got suspended one time.
Yeah, Draymond did.
How many rings does that uber talented big have, DeMarcus Cousins? None. I'm tired of hearing Ant is young, etc. Grow up, play the game, learn how to act like an intelligent grown-up without every other word being the F word. If you don't, you'll just be another talented player that made Timberwolves fans think we had a chance. So yeah, we could sit there and pick nits about like, should he really have been thrown out of the game, blah, blah, blah. But like, why do you have 14, 15 technical fouls before the end of February? Yeah. So it is an absolute legit criticism of Anthony Edwards. But what do you make of Michael Becker is basically saying, if he doesn't watch out, he's going to be more of a DeMarcus Cousins than a Kobe Bryant.
First of all, I feel your frustration, Michael. And the second technical on Ant. Now, I guess he did swear, but but it certainly did not look. It looked like he was fouled. It wasn't called. But then the coup de grace was that he then tosses the ball into the stands. And my whole thing is this: grow up. Seriously, grow up. I know you're 23, but you've been in this league for quite some time now. And the reality is you got the gift of going to the Olympics, right? And being surrounded by professionals. And his game has taken a step. Like, I know there's frustrating nights, but the 3-point shooting is statistically really good. And so there's a lot of things about his game that I do like, but he's got to grow up. Like, this is ridiculous. And when you traded Cat, you didn't trade Cat and go to Ant and say, okay, what I want you to do now is bitch and moan as much as possible. If you feel, the officials miss calls constantly. It's part of the game.
He has eclipsed Cat level complaining. That used to be really annoying. Like, it's a foul, every play. Ant has taken the mantle as the keynote complainer in Timberwolves history.
And it's worse because, one, he is more important. He needs to be in games. So I am with Michael completely. It is time for this kid, for this guy, for this man to grow up. And, the fact that he now is going to be suspended for the game tonight against, it looks like, the Utah Jazz, and then subsequently every two texts he gets after that, he's suspended again until the playoffs when the clock does reset at that point in time. Yeah, I feel your pain, man. It is so frustrating to watch. There's so much to like about this guy's game, and I do think that he still can be a tremendous player and is at times. But this whole thing, did you learn nothing from being around a lot of professionals? Because it feels like he didn't as far as the maturity goes.
You can debate some of the semantics of should he being called for a foul here and there, and that happens, and that's just ticky-tackness. But like throwing the ball into the stands and just like, dude, I know you're frustrated.
I think we lost.
Suspended for every other. It's just, you need more from your superstars. I like players that wear their hearts on their sleeves and being charismatic. But at the end of the day, you got to be better if you're Anthony Edwards.
We're some Dex technical difficulties potentially here. We did get the gist of your point, and I think, like, first of all, let me back up a step. Someone on this show was mocked, ridiculed, and laughed at for bringing up the F-bombs and the swearing as a sign of great immaturity in the post-game press conferences. Someone on the show brought that to everyone's attention 2 months ago, and Sports Dad condescendingly mocked the notion that it might be a sign of some major immaturity. So I'll give you a chance to apologize right now if you want to, Judd. Go ahead.
If cleaning up the F-bombs will stop the constant whining and moaning, then
it's all tied together. It's all tied together.
But in defense of Sports Dad here, you've also said several times he's young. And I'm tired of hearing, at least on the floor, he's young. He is a veteran of the league. So, like, I don't want to hear. I'm with Michael here. Yeah, he's 23. Yeah, he's young in years, but he's been in this league for a long enough time.
Agreed.
Where this crap doesn't fly. And by the way, too, you are easily the most important player on your team and one of the most important players in the entire league. So
yeah. So agreed on you're like 5 years into the league. You might be young relative to like the human population, but you're not young in the NBA anymore. And I know that there's an intersection because you are dealing with guys who are not very old, who have crazy generational money, and they are placated to. And that is an issue across all sports. And the NBA is, I mean, the amount of money that even like, you know, the eighth guy in the rotation makes. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker is going to get like $12 million a year in free agency. So it is a weird cognitive dissonance, but he has no self-control. This isn't about, like, the F-bomb stuff was never about me being a prude or like, I love dropping F-bombs throughout my day-to-day. But it's like, if you can't snap out of it for 5 minutes and provide clear thoughts to the media representing your team and your franchise and yourself without every other word being a casual F-bomb, it's kind of tasteless. It's not, if you go back in NBA history, and I know that he has rejected the idea of wanting to be face of the league, and LeBron kind of backed him on that in LeBron's post-game comments, which we can touch on. But it's like the theme here is, despite how talented he is, and despite the fact he's now the fourth leading scorer in the NBA, he has a chance to be that guy over the next 5 or 6 years, but you're not going to get there without self-control. Self-control speaking to the media, self-control editing yourself in front of officials with a suspension on the line. I kind of thought, you know what, he'll rein it in. All right, he knows there's 2 more to go until he gets suspended. Immediately picks up 2 and maybe costs his team a game against Utah tonight on a back-to-back. And then also on the theme of no self-control, he doesn't know like what shots to take in the fourth quarter half the time. Oh, I'm going to pull up with 2 hands in my face instead of running an actual set here. So I think there's room for some really harsh criticism after last night. He needs to take a deep breath. Chris Finch basically said, we've been talking to him about this stuff all year. It's on him at this point. But yeah, he is. You're not gonna be leading a team to a championship if you can't control yourself as a shot selector, as a player interacting with officials, and just, you know, he's got to become more emotionally intelligent, period.
And I think if he doesn't want to be the face of the league, that's fine. Like, if he's like, I don't want that, I'm fine with that. But you at least have to accept the fact that you are the face of your team because you're its most important player. And so the least that you can do is to be mature enough on the floor to not cost your team. And like that's what he's doing. Like, he's not going to play against a Jazz team that they still should beat, but their odds or their chances of beating the Jazz on Friday night obviously go down. So, like, if you don't want to be on billboards in Times Square, okay, I'm fine with that. That's cool. That's you. You be you. But when you being you literally starts to cost your team potentially games, when you being you makes you at times easier to play against, like, that's where you've crossed the line where now you are counterproductive to the goal, which is to win as much as possible and then win in the playoffs.
And one more thing on this, like, what drives me nuts is, and I can already hear people who are just seething while they consume this conversation right now, that he gets a bad whistle, or that the should be foul that led to his outburst and ejection, that he got fouled and he should have been called for or he should have been sent to the free throw line or whatever.
Yeah.
And yes, he does sometimes get an odd or bad whistle, certainly compared to like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who has become just, and Joel Embiid, like the guys who hunt for fouls. He doesn't hunt for fouls. And sometimes I think, obviously Shaq was one of the biggest players in NBA history, and LeBron, these are different players, but he has such a freight train body type. He doesn't get moved. When Ja Morant drives in the lane through the trees, if like a gust of wind goes across the arena floor, he's going to fly into the second row because he's 180 pounds or whatever. Rob Dillingham, the same way. Ant is a freight train, and so he gets hit and bumped, and sometimes you don't see it because it doesn't move him off his spot, and that's when he gets really frustrated. None of it matters. Yeah, yes, the officials need to be better. Finch, last night, by the way, the Lakers shot 46 free throws, which is twice as much as their season average, and they're one of the top free throw attempt teams in the league for years and years because they're the Lakers. But, dude, like, other players get bad whistles and or other players get mad at officials and find ways to not get suspended before the month of March. So
yeah, what's the list of guys in the league right now who are currently on the threshold of 16 techs? Like that's my question.
Let's see.
Because like if it's a bunch of them, and the fact is, like last night, Luka drives me absolutely nuts. Like his amount of complaining. But that can't be the standard of, well, he does it, so our guy should too.
I think the closest guy was 11. I thought I saw on the broadcast last.
Dylan Brooks, 13.
13.
Who's more of an enforcer than anything.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan Brooks, that's not shocking. And then there's a couple guys at 11, Draymond Green, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and Isaiah Stewart, Trae Young, both have 10 technical fouls.
Okay.
So it's really not even all that close. He's like several technical fouls clear of the rest of the field.
Yep,
so,
exactly.
So it's a thing that definitely needs to get cleaned up. On the positive side last night, Terrance Shannon Jr., man, that dude is a revelation. He puts in a career-high 25. After Ant went down, it's like, okay, you're looking around. Naz Reid, I feel like as great as Naz Reid has been, and as much as I will absolutely give him $30 million a year or whatever in free agency, he is still good for about once every 10 or 12 or 15 games, a big-time offensive clunker. It was a 1 for 10 from him. He did not make a three-pointer, and he was just unable to get his offense off. So Terrance Shannon Jr. looked around and said, all right, let me crack my knuckles here and bring us back into this game, cut that thing to 3 with like 5 minutes to go before the free throw contest started. So that is the biggest positive off last night in a game that was highly frustrating for Wolves fans to watch and probably participate in. They have found a legit spark player here that, regardless of what the DDV was back last night playing 23 minutes, like, you got to find space for Terrance Shannon Jr. going forward here.
So Terrance Shannon Jr. and Jalen Clark now absolutely have to play, right? Like I don't think there's a choice there. Like with Dillingham, you could probably say, well, I don't know, and I would like to see him play, but I think that Terrance Shannon Jr. and Jalen Clark have left Chris Finch with no option. Those two dudes have to play.
Yep. And Terrance Shannon Jr. is he's like 5 years older than Dillingham. I think, is he 25 now, 24?
24, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, he came in as like actually top half of the roster in terms of age, I'm pretty sure.
Phil, do you think that Tim Conley, so like he doesn't talk a lot and we don't know a ton about what he thinks, but do you think Tim Conley just lets Finch figure this stuff out a little bit and now says, because I mean, Finch talked about, I told you this a couple weeks ago in a press conference, Terrance Shannon Jr. was drafted because the feeling was from Conley, he can just step in and play, which clearly he's proven he can. So do you think Conley like looks at this and is like, I told you so? I just would be curious what you think the discussion is there.
Yeah, well, he did have an injury that kind of sidelined him for like a month and whatever it was.
They sent him down. Yeah.
But I think the question is, before that injury, was he not ready to be the ninth guy in the rotation the first like 25 games when they were kind of floundering? At one point, they were a couple games below 500. Weren't they like 8-10 or something? after like 18 games. So, because you're looking at some of these losses now, and it's like, man, if you go back, there's 2 or 3 of them for sure in the last like month that you'd love to have back. The Washington game, but I don't know. We could go back and try to revise the first 20 or 25 games. Maybe no one's going to know for sure unless someone comes out and says, yeah, he was a disaster in practice and he blossomed behind the scenes in January and February, and that's why he's getting the playing time. But he certainly looks energy-wise, ability to score. He can rebound too. He certainly looks like he's just ready to play 25 minutes a night, period. And you got to find space for that.
Mm-hmm. No, he looks, the thing too is, and here's what I love. He is a bull in a china shop. That guy gets the ball and he screws up at times too. But I mean, he goes, right? And here's what I love. It could either be a charge, it could be a foul, or a lot of times he just makes the basket. But either way, guess what he does? I've not seen him do yet. Start to complain.
Yeah.
He doesn't start to complain. He's got more of a veteran presence as far as how to handle those situations, I think, than Ant does.
Yeah. Super just frustrating, annoying night all around for the Timberwolves. The schedule this is now where the Wolves have the easiest schedule going forward of any team in the NBA, starting on the back-to-back tonight, in which they are going to appeal, it sounds like. I think maybe both technicals, or the NBA reviews the technicals.
Well,
so there's a chance that I think if one of them gets rescinded, then he would be back eligible to play tonight. But my guess is he serves a suspension tonight.
I think throwing the ball at the end of technical 2 probably solidified it, right?
Did he throw it technically after the technical?
Yes.
I think so.
So would that, I don't know that would then factor into the calling of the technical.
If I was the league, I would at least say, well, the fact he threw the ball makes this very simple. Because the officials are going to say that I think when Ant hit the deck, he swore at them and he got the tech. But if he had just sworn and then put the ball down, he walked around with the ball and then he chucked it.
Yeah.
I would be inclined to probably say you deserve to be suspended.
Honestly, I don't want him to get bailed out. I think he should. He did apologize reportedly. Mike Conley said he apologized to the team after the game. But this is one of those moments where the league, mommy and daddy, Chris Finch, Tim Connolly, Mike Nori, don't push to bail him out of this. He needs to sit in this, and it's a body of work, season-long achievement award to sit this game tonight against the Jazz and not derail the rest of your teammates going forward. Let's get to this. Axios put together a really interesting proposal for a new Wolves arena site that I want to run by you guys real quick here. A shout out first to Heather, Wolves realtor here, supporting Flagrant Howls.
Yeah, a diehard Wolves fan, and also she has your home interest needs in mind. As someone who's going through the process right now, I can't tell you how thankful I am for my realtor, and you got to make sure that she's taking care of all those things when it comes to an escrow account and the appraisal, and there's so many steps that really overwhelm you. Well, thankfully, Heather is here to walk you through all that process, while also talking about Terrance Shannon Jr., maybe talking about Anthony Edwards needing to grow up a little bit. Go to wolvesrealtor.com to request a free consultation, and while you're there, Timberwolves fans, Flagrant Howls fans, you can register to win 2 free lower-level tickets to the March 9th game against the San Antonio Spurs. So go to wolvesrealtor.com, fill out that form for a chance to win the tickets. Plus, everyone that enters gets a free schedule magnet as well. Go contact Heather for any of your real estate needs at wolvesrealtor.com.
Judd, I was looking at a list of it's Restaurant Week in the Twin Cities. I saw Butcher and the Boar. So we did Butcher and the Boar for Restaurant Week last year or whenever. I don't know if they do it. So good, Butcher and the Boar.
Awesome. Oh yeah, exactly right. And guess what? So once you buy that house like Dex, right? You're going to want to celebrate. You're going to want to celebrate, and you're going to want to pick a restaurant that's a special treat, and that is where my friends at the Butcher and the Boar come in. Located in the North Loop, it's a perfect place to stop before a Wolves game or a Twins game, a gathering space for Southern-style hospitality. Happy hour to celebrate, 4 to 6 every day. I'm going to tell you right now, the food is, as Phil just said, absolutely outstanding, fantastic. And if you don't feel like a meal, you can get the Sports Dad, the Judd Special. A beer, a brat, and a shot for $15. A huge homemade beer brat with sauerkraut and mustard. Any draft beer, any rail shot. That's right. The Butcher and the Boar, a perfect place for that type of snack or a meal, located in the North Loop, not far from Target Center and Target Field.
So yeah, I'll summarize this here. The full article, Axios.com, and it's Nick Halter, who does a good job just reporting on like local business, and he blends in some sports stuff here at Axios. And he did some digging around for potential Wolves arena locations in the hopes of keeping this thing in downtown Minneapolis as like a central hub for people to come in, and maybe even a grander vision of like the Bucks created in downtown Milwaukee, this plaza area, and there's all these bars and restaurants, and I think it's like open container too in some of the areas, so you can kind of walk around. And Axios proposed the City Center location. So instead of being in the Target Center footprint, you go a couple blocks down the street to the City Center location, which is between, correct me if I'm wrong on this, it's between Hennepin and Nicollet, and between 6th and 7th. So like where the Fogo de Chao restaurant is in that
correct
area. There's a couple other things in there. And he writes, an arena here could have an entrance on Nicollet Mall and another on Hennepin, which would bring much needed evening and weekend foot traffic to downtown, which has been far too dependent on office workers. Imagine a Wolves or a Lynx playoff game with fans bar hopping on a pedestrian-only Nicollet Mall where open containers are allowed. Tearing down a massive complex like this and rebuilding an arena might sound absurd because this building sold for $320 million just 6 years ago. But not if you consider a nearby tower with a similar story. The Ameriprise Financial was the sole tenant of the Ameriprise Finance Center, but they decided in 2022 to consolidate workers to a nearby building. So it was like basically empty. The building just sold for $6.25 million after initially selling for $200 million in 2016. So some of these buildings are just taking a bath.
Yes.
But how would you guys feel if now they'd have some of the comparable footprints for other new arenas? They would need more space than just this potentially.
Yes.
But how would you feel if a new Timberwolves arena was plopped right in the middle of downtown Minneapolis?
Oh, I think it'd be great. I love this. So City Center opened, I think, in the 80s when I was a kid. And it was, because then shopping was a big deal. Everyone loved to go shopping. You went down to City Center and it was the hub. It was, the hub of the activity. And people don't go shopping now. And the point about, since the pandemic, working in an office is basically dead to a large degree, especially when you consider that part of the problem in going to an office downtown is you have to pay pretty good money to park your car. I love this. You would need more room, but you know what? It wouldn't kill us or downtown to change the footprint too. Like you have to buy more space. And you probably have to knock down more buildings. That being said, you wouldn't be knocking down any buildings that off the top of my head I can think are worth saving. It's not like City Center's been here since 1895. It should be
Crochet Tower is like the one that we and IDS.
Exactly.
I'd say IDS.
Exactly. So I like this. I do think that there is a very a plausible discussion to be had here that a new Wolves building, if it is downtown, would not be on the Target Center footprint, which, by the way, that footprint could be expanded to include a district. Like there's lots of things because Target Field's so close. So I haven't thought about this before, but I actually love it. I love the thought, Declan.
Yeah, if it was this or go to the suburbs, I think. I mean, biased because I just love everything being centrally located. I suppose if you live in Bloomington or you live in Blaine or Maple Grove or whatever, you love an arena out there.
Right.
So yeah, all for this. And the other tenants in there that you'd have to like negotiate with are like FEMA's is in there, and there's a couple like Knopf. There's a couple smaller ones, and there's a Marriott. There's a Marriott that just renovated for $60 million in 2020.
But you could tie that into the building.
Hotel you basically tell them all you're going to go away for a little bit, and then you're going to come back.
I got some ideas here. I got some ideas here. Like this could all be tied into a project, because I love the idea of a district. I think the Bucks call that the Deer District.
Mm-hmm.
I love that idea. That's
cool.
a really cool idea.
Yeah, keeping it in downtown's a necessity, man. Please don't. As someone who's getting out of the burbs and then going back into the city, which I'm going to be doing here shortly, please don't go to the burbs. Stay downtown. I love that venues are downtown. Please do it. Keep it in Minneapolis.
You're not going back to the city.
Going back to St. Paul. I'm in St. Paul.
Okay.
That is a huge difference.
Well,
than
you'll
Woodbury.
be in the city of St. Paul, but
I'm 5 minutes from downtown St. Paul.
Maybe we should put the arena downtown St. Paul, right next to XL Energy Center. So
they've
that's
got one. They're fine. Downtown St. Paul. Yeah, I like this too, because if you could re-image downtown in some ways, I do think that would be a really cool step, because part of the problem is, and it's the natural attrition, right? Part of the problem is office buildings now just aren't nearly as necessary.
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy change. I mean, so downtown Minneapolis, the living population has skyrocketed the last 5 years and even before the pandemic.
Yes.
And you're seeing a lot of different lots being converted to condo complexes, apartment complexes. So if it could, because I don't think you're ever going to go back to just filling these huge buildings with people going back to office spaces. So how can you creatively fill the footprint? Well, housing and potentially like sporting districts that people feel. That's another thing too, is like sometimes that area, Nicollet, Hennepin, it can get a little at night. People feel uncomfortable. So if you could turn it into a place where people feel comfortable going around and hanging out before, after games, and making it part of the heartbeat of downtown, that would be awesome.
What's going to incentivize people from the suburbs to come downtown? And the problem now too is, and this again, like there is 1,000 things about Target Center that are wrong. The other problem too is that was never built with the intention of keeping fans around, or like, hey, come, I mean, they put a restaurant in, but there was not the whole thing of there's no district there. There's nothing that they try in the playoffs, but like if you could create now an entertainment district, and so people come down, I don't know, 5 o'clock for a game. They might stay late. Like that's how you keep people in downtown, which I would love to see thriving again.
Yep. So yeah, let us know in the comment section here on YouTube. Would you be down for this as a potential creative new location for a Wolves arena? If not, where would you like to see a new Wolves arena? Because that's going to be a huge topic the minute that the ink dries on the new ownership here, which sounds like it's going to happen in March. Yeah, Duluth. Can send Declan up to.
No one wants to do that.
Up to Duluth.
I love Duluth, so I'd be happy to drive to Duluth for games.
You wouldn't. You would hate to do that drive for Wolves games. You can't stand 9 o'clock games. You're going to take a 3-hour drive to Duluth.
It's not 3 hours, by the way.
I was joking. It's not 3 hours. And by the way, the view when you come,
look how bigger Declan is by Duluth.
It's gorgeous. When you come into Duluth from on top of the hill, nothing more gorgeous.
Is part of the reason why you don't like Duluth is because you think it takes 3 hours to get there from Twin Cities?
It's not worth it. And everyone talks about how great it is, and you go there maybe once a year. That's it. You go there once a year, and you act like it's this mecca. And it's
do we need to go? Do you need to go someplace more than once a year to love it? I go to California's coast once every 7 years. Bodega Bay, beautiful. I love it. Don't need to go. Don't need to travel there.
That's more seeing more.
Okay. Declan's Duluth hill to die on over the years.
Of all of the places outside the metro on my list, I think I'd put Duluth 1.
I'm with Judd on this one.
Yeah.
I might put it number 1 in the state, period.
Whoa!
You don't live there. Why is that?
Because Minnesota sports teams are here, and this is what we do for a living. So
your anger is palpable.
Yeah.
Go Bulldogs.
Take a deep breath, Declan. This is Flagrant Howls, your favorite Timberwolves lifestyle podcast. We'll see you guys next week.
Go Duluth.